You know what's harder than losing your husband? Hearing your daughter-in-law lean in at his funeral and whisper, "She's next. I'm Margaret, and this is the story of how I realized my own family was just waiting for me to die. She's next, and that house, it's worth $450,000." Vanessa said it like she was talking about the weather. Her hand brushed my shoulder, light, intentional, like she was trying to be gentle, but her voice was low, hidden behind that silk scarf she always ties too tightly. She leaned in just enough to make sure I didn't miss a word. I didn't say anything, just sat there, hands folded in my lap, white gloves creased at the knuckles. I stared out the chapel window at the magnolia tree, its bare branches against a cold gray sky. Charlie used to say that tree always bloomed too early, like it had something to prove. The minister kept talking about heaven and eternity, but I barely heard him. Charlie's ashes were already in that brass urn up front. The folded flag sat beside it. I still hadn't cried. Maybe I was waiting for it to feel real, or maybe I was still trying to understand what had just happened. After the service, people walked by with casseroles, condolences, and awkward little comments about how strong I looked. I smiled a few times, nodded. They meant well, but I've learned that when people don't know what to say, they often say too much. Back at the house, the kitchen smelled like macaroni and lemon cleaner. Vanessa acted like she ran the place, moving dishes around, fixing napkins, pointing folks to the guest bathroom. Dan stayed near the door, quiet, rigid in the same suit he wore to his dad's last court date. He looked at me once, then quickly looked away. Lily stayed close, bless her. She notices things, always has. At one point, she touched my elbow and asked, "Grandma, do you want me to make you a plate?" I told her I was fine, but honestly, I couldn't taste a thing. Vanessa's voice kept echoing in my head, like a song stuck on repeat, just the words, no tune. That night, I sat alone in the living room. The counter behind me was lined with foil-covered dishes. Charlie's chair sat across from mine, cushions still sunken where he always sat. The TV was off, and the silence, it wasn't peaceful. It felt like the house was holding its breath. Right before bed, I did something I hadn't done in decades. I locked my bedroom door. I wasn't scared, not exactly, but something had shifted, like a hollow space had opened up in the middle of everything I thought I knew about my family. I thought I buried the man I loved, but maybe I also buried the only one who ever truly protected me. And the next morning, when I reached for the cinnamon to stir into my tea, it wasn't where I left it. Someone had moved it, behind the cumin. They say grief makes you forget things, but I remember exactly where I kept the cinnamon. That morning, sunlight came through the kitchen curtains in slow, golden streaks. The old wooden floor creaked under my slippers as I walked to the counter. Toast crumbs from the day before still clung to the toaster. The air smelled faintly of lemon dish soap and maybe, just barely, of Charlie's cologne still hanging on in the cushion of the chair he always used. I reached up to the spice rack. Second shelf, right side, cinnamon behind the nutmeg. But instead, there was cumin, then paprika, oregano. I finally found the cinnamon, tucked behind the cumin. Charlie used to say our kitchen was like a map, everything exactly where it belonged, and over the years I'd redrawn that map bit by bit. Every season, every holiday dish, every new recipe Lily brought home from school. But now someone else had redrawn it. There was a knock at the back door. Vanessa walked in without waiting, holding a small box and wearing that bright, polite smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Brought some things for the house," she said. "Thought it could use a little refresh." She set down a couple of navy throw pillows, sharp, bold patterns that looked loud against my soft beige couch. Then she started opening cabinets, moving glassware around, humming to herself like she was already making the place hers. I just stood by the stove watching her. She moved through the room like someone scoping out a house they might want to buy. A few minutes later, Dan walked in, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "Hey, Ma, you sleep okay?" I nodded. "Fine enough." He kissed the top of my head, then gave Vanessa a look. She answered with one of her own, that quiet, silent language couples use, the kind parents notice without needing to hear the words. "She's just trying to help," he said, eyes avoiding mine. "Of course," I replied, folding a dish towel slowly. "Very considerate." Vanessa glanced back and smiled. "We should talk sometime soon about making this place a little more manageable." She said it like how real estate agents say cozy when they really mean cramped. I gave her a polite smile, the kind you wear at funerals or baby showers. "We can talk," I said. After they left, I went back into the kitchen and started putting things back where they belonged. That's when I saw it, a glossy brochure, half tucked under the mail on the counter. Oak Haven assisted living peaceful surroundings, vibrant community, on-site memory care. My name wasn't on it, but I felt the message loud and clear, like it was stamped into the linoleum. They hadn't said anything out loud, but I could already hear the moving truck in her voice. She didn't say much, just hugged me a little tighter than usual, and somehow I knew she had heard everything. The morning light was thick and golden, slipping through the trees like something holy. I was sitting on the porch swing, holding a mug of tea that had gone lukewarm a while ago. The cushion beneath me had this old sun-faded patch, years of wear, and I liked it that way. Familiar things matter when everything else feels like quicksand. Lily came out barefoot, her curls pulled into a messy bun. She didn't say hi, just sat beside me and leaned her head against my shoulder. We rocked in silence for a while. The chains creaked softly, keeping time with the wind chimes. I noticed she wasn't wearing the dress her mother had picked out for church. "Skip the sermon?" I asked gently. "I figured God would understand," she murmured. We sat there a little longer before I said, "Your grandfather would have teased you for that, called you a rebel." She smiled. "He always liked that I asked too many questions." Charlie used to say Lily had my fire, but she softened it with that big, gentle heart of hers. He once whispered to me, "Lily's got your backbone. Just wait and see." I didn't think much of it back then, but now, sitting beside her, I knew exactly what he meant. "I've been thinking," I said carefully, "maybe it's time to start clearing some things out. This house feels like a bit much." Lily turned to me, raising her eyebrows. "Did you think that, or did someone suggest it for you?" Her voice was soft, but there was weight behind it. I looked down into my tea. Things shift after a funeral. People start having opinions. "I heard her," she said quietly. "I didn't ask who. I didn't need to." "They don't get to decide where you belong, Grandma. You know that, right?" There was something in her voice, steady and sure, that caught me off guard. She was only 17, but right then she had the presence of someone much older. She took my hand like it was a promise. A soft knock interrupted us. Nurse Cynthia poked her head out through the screen door. "Just stopping by," she said with a little smile, holding up a folded checklist. "No rush, but if you'd ever like help installing handrails or making the bathroom safer, I can recommend someone good. Nothing major, you're doing just fine." She smiled, kind but professional, and was gone before I could say anything. I watched her leave, then turned back to Lily. "Seems like everyone's got a plan for me these days." "Well," Lily said as she stood and stretched, "they might have a plan, but so do I." I looked up at her, half amused. "Oh, yeah? I'm going to start coming around more. Maybe help you go through some old photos. I'll bring groceries, too, better than whatever Dad picks up." I laughed, mostly out of relief. "You sure you want to spend your weekends with an old woman?" She leaned down and kissed my forehead. "You're not going through this alone. Got it?" That's when the lump in my throat finally gave in. "Thank you for seeing me," I whispered. "Not everyone does." She didn't say anything else, just hugged me again, tighter this time, and in that moment I knew I wasn't invisible. Not to her, not anymore. People came for casseroles and closure, but they stuck around just long enough to see who got what. The waiting room at Goldstein and Associates had that faint smell of lemon polish and worn-out ambition. An assistant offered me coffee with one of those overly cheerful smiles. I passed. My stomach already had enough going on. We sat around this long oak table, the kind built more for announcements than actual conversation. The overhead lights were bright, fluorescent, and brutally honest. Dan kept tapping on his phone, his tie crooked. Vanessa sat straight as a board, fingers steepled like she was gearing up for a business deal. Her lipstick matched the folder in front of her, bold, burgundy, and deliberate. Mr. Goldstein came in with a rustle of papers and a voice that sounded like it had handled 100 of these scenes before. "Thank you all for coming," he began, unfolding the will like it was scripture. I didn't really hear the intro. My eyes wandered, following the grain of the table, noticing how the assistant kept refilling everyone's cups, except mine. I caught the soft tap of Vanessa's manicured nail against the folder, once, then silence, and I thought of Charlie. He used to say, "I might not be around forever, but I'll make sure you're never left behind." At the time, I thought it was just another sweet thing he said. But then Goldstein cleared his throat. "In the matter of the house," he read, "Mr. Charles Walker grants full lifetime residence rights to his wife, Margaret Walker. The property may not be sold, transferred, or otherwise altered until her passing or voluntary relocation." There was a pause, not long, but sharp enough to cut the air. Vanessa blinked, just once, then gave a tight little smile, cool as stone. "Of course, that's generous." Dan didn't look up, and that silence, it hurt more than if he'd said anything at all. Goldstein went on, his voice steady but a little softer now. "Mr. Walker was explicit. He wanted his wife to be protected, not pressured." That one hit harder than I expected. Not because I didn't know Charlie would do that, I did, but hearing it written down, read aloud, it made it real. For weeks I'd felt that slow, steady pressure building, the new throw pillows I never asked for, the spice rack rearranged, the brochure for assisted living. Vanessa always made it sound like she was just being helpful, but now I could see it clearly. It wasn't help. It was a quiet push. I glanced her way, and for just a second, I saw it, a flicker. Her jaw tightened before the smile snapped back into place, perfect and rehearsed. Goldstein finished the reading, slid the documents into neat envelopes. Vanessa folded hers slowly, like she was closing a deal she didn't quite get. We stepped out into the parking lot. The winter sun was low, stretching long shadows across the pavement. I walked a little slower, letting the cold settle into my bones, and behind me, just barely above a whisper, I heard her. "So now we wait. That's the game." I didn't answer, just kept walking toward my car. Let her play whatever game she thinks she's in, because now, finally, I wasn't just some widow in an old house. I was Charlie's wife, with every right to stay exactly where I belong, in the home we built, on our terms. And this time, I had it in writing. If you've ever felt like someone was trying to make choices for you instead of with you, then maybe you understand a little of what I'm feeling right now. I'd really love to know. Have you ever had to quietly fight for your space, your voice, your place in the world? Tell me in the comments. I'm reading everyone. And if you want to stick with me through the rest of this story, hit subscribe so we don't lose each other. Next chapter's coming, and trust me, things are just starting to unravel. The house was quieter now, not just because of the loss, but because of the weight of expectations still echoing in the air. Evening settled over the place like an old quilt, heavy, familiar, and a little worn around the edges. Rain tapped softly against the windows. No rhythm, really, just steady enough to remind me the world was still out there, still turning. I moved through the living room slowly, straightening cushions that didn't need fixing, wiping smudges off the coffee table that nobody had touched. The TV stayed off. I hadn't turned it on in days. Silence had become its own kind of language. Charlie's chair was still by the window, right where it always sat. The plaid cushions still dipped where his weight used to be. He always insisted on facing the glass, said he liked to see the day come and go, like it was his quiet way of keeping watch over time. I stood there for a long moment, just looking at it. Then, for the first time, I sat down. At first, it felt like I was stepping into someone else's skin. I stiffened, almost like I was intruding. But then I caught the scent, leather and old aftershave, familiar. My shoulders eased. The view hadn't changed, but somehow I was seeing it through his eyes. The oak tree in the yard was down to its last leaves. The neighbor's cat darted across the path as determined as ever. And in that stillness I heard him, not as a ghost, as a memory. I remembered a night, not too long ago, just the two of us sitting there after Lily had gone to bed. He took my hand the way he always did when he had something important to say. I added that clause to the will, he told me. They won't like it, but this isn't about them. It's about making sure you stay where you belong. I didn't say much then, just nodded, squeezed his hand. The rain picked up outside. I let the sound wash over everything. Then my phone lit up on the table beside me. Lily. "Hey, Grandma," she said, cheerful. "How'd it go with the lawyer? Everything okay?" I smiled, really smiled, for the first time in days. "Your grandpa left me a sword," I said. There was a pause, then laughter. "That sounds like him." We talked a little longer. School, her mom being picky about dinner, some group project she wasn't excited about. Her voice was sunlight, even through the phone, and when we hung up, I felt steadier, like I could breathe again. I stood to close the curtains, but stopped. The rain had blurred the porch light against the window, softening everything. I reached for the candle on the mantel, lit it, and set it next to Charlie's photo. The flame wobbled at first, then held steady. "They won't move me, love," I whispered. "I promise." Just as I turned to head upstairs, my phone buzzed again. "Vanessa, let's talk, just the two of us." I stared at the message longer than I needed to. The candle's warmth brushed my fingertips but didn't reach much farther. Outside, somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled. She brought chamomile, the peace offering of women who never actually mean peace. The doorbell rang with a kind of urgency that didn't match the cold outside. I opened it, and there she was, Vanessa, holding a small paper bag, smiling like someone who practiced in the mirror. "I brought tea," she said. "Chamomile. Thought you might need something calming." I stepped aside. How thoughtful. She walked past me, her boots tapping lightly on the floor, and stopped just long enough to drop the bag on the counter. "They're gluten-free. I know you probably don't care, but I figured it couldn't hurt." The oven was still warm from the apple crisp I'd baked earlier. The kitchen still smelled like nutmeg, sweet and comforting, like a memory that hadn't turned sour yet. I poured hot water into 2 mugs. Mine was an old chipped ceramic one from a farmer's market. Hers bright white and almost untouched. The kind you save for guests you're not quite sure about. Vanessa sat down at the kitchen table like she was there to conduct an interview, and she was the only one asking the questions. For a while, we just sipped. No small talk. Just the ticking of the clock and the occasional creak of an old house doing what old houses do. "You've got so much space here," she finally said, eyes moving around the room. "Don't you ever feel tired?" I took another sip, held it a little longer than I needed to. "I nap when I need to." She smiled, the kind that feels almost like permission. "I was just thinking, not right now, of course, but maybe at some point something more manageable might make sense. Something easier, maybe with care on site, a nice view." I stirred my tea even though it didn't need it. Eventually is God's calendar, I said. I'm still on mine. Her lips pressed together. Not a smile, not a frown, just measuring. Upstairs, I could hear Lily's laughter through the floor. That girl has a way of lighting up rooms she's not even in. Vanessa leaned back, crossed her arms. You know, she said, voice a little lower, that house could change Lily's life, college, her future. We're not asking you to move tomorrow, but I set my mug down slowly. So could I, if I'm allowed to stay in it. There was a pause. Her expression flickered, just a little crack in the armor. It's not about pushing you out, Margaret. We just want what's best. For whom? I asked. Not angry, just honest. She stood, adjusted her coat, one of those wool blends that whispers designer price tags without saying a word. At the door, she stopped. You know, you're not the only one who loved him. I looked at her, steady, calm as breath. No, I said, but I'm the only one who stayed. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't answer. Just turned and walked out into the pale afternoon light. I watched her heels tap down the steps, then listened as her car disappeared around the corner, like the last sentence of a story no one wanted to finish. I know I'm not the only one who's ever had someone smile at them while quietly trying to erase their place in the world. If you've ever sat across from someone sipping tea that tasted more like strategy than comfort, I'd love to know what you said, or what you wanted to say. Leave me a comment, even just a sentence. Sometimes it's enough just to know we're not the only ones playing quiet chess games in our own kitchens, and if you're wondering what she'll try next, well, so am I. She left her plan right out in the open. Like I wouldn't notice the stack of forms labeled Power of Attorney. The afternoon light came in at an angle, spilling across the living room rug like someone had painted it there. I had just poured myself a cup of coffee when I saw it, a manila folder, sitting perfectly on the edge of the coffee table. It wasn't mine, and it definitely hadn't been there that morning. I sat down slowly, eyeing the tab. Suggested estate plan updates, not exactly bedtime reading. Inside, everything was too neat to be a mistake. Blank power of attorney forms, health proxies, a hospice intake packet still clipped together, legal boxes, signature lines, all waiting for someone to say yes. Charlie's voice came to me, low and dry like always. They won't come with fire. They'll come with paperwork. I didn't need to read every page. I already knew. I left the folder open and leaned back just as Vanessa came through the front door. No knock, just her voice floating down the hallway. Oh, hi, I was just in the neighborhood. A moment later, she appeared in the doorway holding a grocery bag like it was a prop in a school play. Her eyes landed on the folder right away. Oh, I must have put those in the wrong stack. That's embarrassing. She let out a light little laugh, the kind that tries too hard to feel natural. I didn't say a word, just raised an eyebrow and handed it to her. She tucked it under her arm like it was nothing, kept chatting about the weather, errands, how Lily already needed new shoes. Then she was gone, quiet as she came. Once the door closed, I stood there for a long time, coffee still in my hand. Cold now? Then I walked to my room, opened my desk drawer, and took out the key. When I came back, the folder was still sitting on the hall bench. I picked it up, carried it back, and locked it away. No drama, no speech. Then I sat down at the kitchen table and called Cynthia. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, cheerful and breathless, probably in the middle of her shift. "Quick question," I told her. "How's my mental fitness these days?" She laughed, big and warm. "Better than mine, probably. Why?" "Just checking," I said. "Didn't want to accidentally sign away my life." She paused. "You want me to come by tomorrow?" "No," I said. "I'm not dying, just organizing." After we hung up, I stared at the kitchen clock for a bit. The second hand felt like it was ticking too fast, too loud. An hour later, Lily texted me. "Still want me to bring that pie tomorrow?" "It's peach." I texted back. "Yes, please." And bring your appetite. I might cook, too. That night, I sat at the same table where Charlie used to write birthday cards in blue pen. I pulled out a yellow legal pad, tore off the top sheet, and started writing. Not a will, not instructions, just something no one else could fill out for me, something only I could say. He hadn't sat there since Dad died, but that Sunday Dan showed up with coffee and a silence that wanted to be heard. The porch swing creaked beneath us, slow and steady in the mid-February breeze. The sun was gentle that morning, not warm, but soft enough to lean into. I was halfway through the crossword when I heard footsteps on the gravel path. Dan was standing there, 2 paper cups in hand, his shoulders tight like he wasn't sure if he was bringing coffee or an apology. "I brought you one," he said, holding it out like a peace offering. I folded the paper and nodded toward the swing. "You remember how it works?" He gave me a faint smile and sat down. We swung together in silence, sipping our coffee. The breeze moved between us, saying what neither of us could. "Vanessa's at her sister's today," he said after a while. "Lily went to the park with some friends. I thought, maybe we could talk." I waited. Dan let out a breath, one of those deep ones that's been stuck inside for too long. "It's not fair to you, I know." I didn't say anything. Just let the swing do its job. It has a way of pulling the truth out of people. Vanessa's really good at making things seem helpful," he said, "like cleaning out your spice rack, folding your laundry, printing off legal forms, but it's all about control. It's been like that for a while." I looked over at him. His eyes stayed fixed on the horizon, like he couldn't quite face mine yet. "I let her," he admitted, "because it was easier, less to think about, less to argue over." I took another sip of my coffee. It had gone lukewarm. "I didn't fight her for this house," I said quietly. "I fought for the right to stay seen, that's all." He looked at me then, really looked. "I forgot how strong you are," he said, his voice low. "No, you didn't," I said softly. "You just stopped asking where I went." A few minutes later, Lily showed up on the porch, cheeks pink from the cold, a bag of bagels in hand. She paused when she saw us, then smiled, a small, knowing smile. She didn't say a word, just went inside. The swing kept swaying. Dan set his coffee down on the railing, then reached over and placed his hand on mine. His palm was rough, like Charlie's used to be, though the feeling was different. It wasn't protection. It was searching. "I'll make it right," he said, just, "give me time." I didn't answer. Not because I didn't believe him, but because time is a slippery thing. It gives you just enough to try and fix what's broken, then reminds you it's running out. As he stood to leave, I watched him walk down the steps, his stride slower, heavier than when he came. I looked out across the yard. The breeze stirred the grass. Birds were calling to one another through the trees. Time, that's all any of us really want, until someone else decides to start counting it for you. They said the grab bars were for safety, but putting them in myself? That felt more like building a fortress. The moment I stepped into Home Depot, I was hit with the smell of sawdust and rubber mats. That place always felt too big, too many aisles, too many people in orange aprons. But that morning, I walked in like I had a blueprint in my pocket. I wasn't looking for permission. I just needed rails that didn't wobble, a brighter hallway light, a bath mat that wouldn't try to kill me on wet mornings. Simple as that. Lily met me there, still rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Did you seriously write out a list?" She laughed as I pulled a folded paper from my purse. "Of course," I said. "If we're going to outsmart your parents, we need a strategy." She pushed the cart. I filled it. Grab bars, motion sensor lights, slip-resistant tape, even a new smoke detector just in case. One of our neighbors waved from 3 doors down, eyebrows raised when she saw what we were doing. "Spring cleaning?" she asked. "No," I said, "fortifying the perimeter." We spent the afternoon in a quiet flurry. Lily worked the screwdriver while I held the bar steady. My knees cracked every time I crouched, but I didn't complain. I even climbed up on the hallway stool and changed the light bulb outside my bedroom. First time I'd done that since Charlie passed. And you know what? It felt good. That clang of tools, the click of screws locking into place. The house didn't just feel safer, it felt steadier, like it had chosen me back. Cynthia dropped by around 4 just as we were finishing up. "Someone's been busy," she said, clearly impressed. "I'm just making sure nobody calls me fragile again," I said, drying my hands with a towel. She walked down the hall, nodding as she went. "You're 2 steps ahead of any agency," she smiled. "Honestly, I should take notes." I grinned. "That'll be $5 per tip." We wrapped the day by painting the front room a soft, pale yellow. Brighter than what Charlie would have picked, but a lot warmer than that old beige. Lily rolled the brush along the edges. I took the corners, humming a tune I couldn't name. By the time we finished, the whole room looked like spring had arrived early. I sat on the window ledge while Lily opened the window, letting the breeze move through. The curtains floated in and out like soft sails. Outside, the trees were still bare, but the air, it smelled like something was about to bloom. "Let them come," I whispered, mostly to myself. "This house will outlast the storm." Lily didn't say anything, just rested a hand on my shoulder, solid, steady. And then I heard it, the crunch of tires on gravel. Vanessa's SUV pulled into the driveway like a period at the end of a sentence. But I didn't flinch. I didn't move from the window, didn't tighten my grip on anything. I just watched, because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't bracing for the storm. I had made this house strong, and I had made myself stronger. Some days, standing your ground feels a lot like standing alone, but maybe you know that feeling, that quiet kind of strength nobody cheers for. If you've ever had to reclaim something that was already yours, I'd love to hear how you did it. How do you hold your space when someone tries to shrink it? Tell me in the comments. Your stories matter here. And if you're wondering what Vanessa had planned behind that car door, yeah, so was I. Let's keep going, together. She didn't bring a lawyer this time, just Earl Grey, and a very thin smile. Vanessa stood on my porch with a paper bag in hand, looking, well, not polished, not rehearsed, just tired. The heels were gone. She wore flats. Her hair was still neat, but softer somehow. No clipboard, no folders, just tea. "I thought maybe we could try this without a battleground," she said. I nodded and stepped aside. In the kitchen, I set out 2 mismatched mugs, Charlie's old bird-shaped one for me, a plain navy one for her. The sunlight came through the blinds, casting long, soft stripes across the floor. Upstairs, I could hear Lily moving, either pacing or dancing, maybe both. Vanessa sat across from me, her hands wrapped around the mug like she needed it for balance. "We've been circling the same argument," she said, stirring her tea but not drinking it. "I keep trying to make it sound reasonable. You keep shutting it down, reasonable or not." I didn't answer right away, just poured a little milk into my tea and gave it a slow stir. "You scare me a little," she said finally. "You don't budge." I looked at her, really looked, and there it was. Not defeat, exactly, but something softer, a small dent in the armor. "I've lived long enough," I said, "to stop apologizing for staying in my own life." She let out a breath of a laugh, quiet, more air than sound. "You know, it's not that I hate you, or the house, or even this whole mess. I just—" She looked down at her cup. "I saw this place as a solution. For Dan, for Lily's college, for everything I've been carrying alone. And I said gently, am not a problem." The silence that followed wasn't heavy, just real. "You're not what I expected," she said. "I thought you'd cave. Honestly, I didn't think you had it in you." I raised an eyebrow. That's the thing about older women. People mistake quiet for weak. She looked away, out the window. "I'm not here to push anymore," she said after a pause. "Not today." "That's the first real thing you've said to me," I replied. After that, we just drank our tea. No more pushing, no performance, not exactly comfortable, but not cold either. Just two women at a kitchen table, sitting in the space between everything that had been said and everything that maybe didn't need to be. She set her mug down and stood. "We'll figure something out," she said. I nodded, said nothing. Not a promise, not a surrender, just space. She let herself out. I stayed there for a while, hands wrapped around the mug. Earl Grey, sharp and floral. Not my favorite, but tolerable, if you steep it gently. The sun had shifted by then. Light slid across the table like time getting ready to move again. I stared at the empty chair she'd left behind and thought about how strange it is, how much can shift when no one's yelling. Recognition isn't peace, but it's a start. She never said a word about it, just left it on my nightstand like a lighthouse on a foggy morning. The light coming through the window was soft and golden. You could smell the magnolia buds just starting to open outside. A breeze moved through the room, gentle enough to stir the curtains. And for once, I didn't pull them closed. There was something kind in the air, something that told me, let it in. I reached for my glasses, and that's when I saw the envelope. No stamps, no fancy note, just folded paper, tucked neatly beneath the base of the lamp, Lily's handwriting on the front. For Grandma, if you ever doubt yourself. My throat caught before I even opened it. Her handwriting was just how I remembered it from all those thank you notes I made her write after birthdays. Slanted, looping, careful, but still full of her. Dear Grandma, I don't know if you'll find this on a good day or a hard one, but either way, I hope it finds you. There are 100 things I wish I'd said out loud, so I'm writing them now, just in case you ever need to hear them. I see you. I always have. I remember how you always had cookies in the tin, even when no one asked, how your stories felt like time machines, how your hugs made me feel safe. You didn't talk much when you were tired or hurting, but I always knew. You taught me how to sit still with hard things, how to hold space for people, even when they didn't know they needed it. I know things have been tense lately, and I know you're not made of stone, even if you act like it sometimes. I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you. You didn't let them move you, not just from this house, but from your own life. You showed me that a woman doesn't have to shrink to survive. I'll carry that with me, always. Love, Lily. The words blurred as I read them, but it wasn't grief this time, not exactly. It was something deeper, something that fills your chest and aches in the best way, the kind of ache that comes from being seen. I held the letter to my chest for a second, then rested it gently on my lap. My fingers traced the edge of the page, over and over, like I was trying to hold on to her voice, to the girl she'd been and the woman she was becoming, all at once. Then the floor creaked. I looked up. Lily stood in the doorway, barefoot, holding her elbows like she wasn't sure where to put her arms. She didn't say anything. I reached out my hand. She crossed the room and curled into the side of the bed, the way she used to when she was small. We didn't talk. We didn't have to. Her hand found mine, warm, steady, and we sat there, quiet, while spring moved softly through the room. Magnolias blooming outside, and something else blooming between us, quiet, unspoken, and real. Some moments don't need words, just presence, and in that silence I knew something deep in my bones. This house may not last forever, but the women in it were built to. The tree bloomed early this year, like it was showing off for someone who might be watching. The magnolia outside the porch had exploded into color, soft pink petals spilling over like it had something to prove. Maybe it did. Charlie always called it a stubborn old thing, said it was like me, bloomed when it wanted to, not when the calendar said it should. I sat out on the porch with a mug of chamomile, not a peace offering anymore, just something I chose for myself. The late afternoon sun turned everything gold. The railings, the rim of my teacup, Lily's hair as she sat reading on the steps. She didn't say much, just turned her pages and looked up now and then with a quiet smile, like being here was enough. and it was. Dan came by with a pie, cherry, store-bought but warm. He didn't stay long, just handed it to me with a sheepish grin. "Didn't bake it," he said. "I know," I smiled, "but it's the thought that counts." "No big plans today?" he asked, glancing out at the quiet yard. "This is the plan," I told him. "Sit, watch spring show off." He nodded, rubbed the back of his neck. Vanessa's doing better, less intense." "Good," I said. I didn't ask more. He waved to Lily. She waved back. Then he got in his car and left. No fuss, no drama. Not long after, my phone buzzed. "Vanessa." I answered. "Hello? Just checking in," she said. Her voice was polite, calm. "I'm doing fine," I said. "Hope you are too." A pause. "I am." Another moment. "Okay, talk soon." "Take care, Vanessa." I ended the call gently. Not cold, but not open either. We'd found a boundary, not perfect, but solid enough to hold. That evening, as the light turned to honey and the shadows stretched long across the porch, I gathered a small bundle of magnolia blossoms and walked them down to Charlie's grave. No florist bouquet, no big ceremony, just flowers from our own stubborn tree. I knelt down, brushed some grass off the headstone. "You were right," I whispered. "I didn't let them write the ending." The wind moved around me, not sad, just settling. Back at the house, Lily was still sitting on the steps, tracing her finger along the porch rail. I sat beside her. My knees grumbled a bit, but I didn't mind. She asked, "Do you ever miss how things used to be?" I didn't need time to think. "No, honey," I said, resting my hand on hers. "I like who I am now too much." Above us, the tree rustled. A few magnolia petals floated down, soft and sweet. One landed between us. Lily caught it, held it up to the light, and I laughed. Not bitter, not brave, just me. And for once, the silence wasn't about absence. It was about joy. That magnolia tree bloomed early this year. And maybe, so did I, not out of fear, not out of spite, but because something deep inside me remembered how to grow again. I've learned that staying doesn't always mean standing still. Sometimes it means choosing yourself, quietly, every day, even when no one claps. Family is complicated, but real love, the kind that lasts, sees you, holds you, and lets you keep your place at the table. If any part of this touched something in you, I'd be honored to hear your story. Tell me about a time you found your strength, even in the quietest way. And if you'd like to stay for what comes next, I'd love to have you here. Because next time, I'll tell you about the day my daughter let her little girl say, "Old people shouldn't take up space." So I did something I never thought I would. I took everything back.